Oh my God, this week is over. Why are some weeks like this? I don't know. Do you know? Do you know? I don't know. I don't know why some weeks that are similar to other weeks that you have experienced just turn into this never-ending spiral of energetic siphoning, and you get to a point where you just stop and realize that you have nothing left to give. On a lighter note, I found a really cool tag this week, and you bet your booties that I'm gonna be participating. The tag is Deck Crush, and it was created by Don Michelle, Marlena Teresa, Lisa Pepez, and Danny Mystic. And this is essentially decks that we have a thing for. So let's get our swoon on and do this thing. This tag is so cute and the prompts are just so fun. And as I was going through, I was kind of just making this little mental note of each one that came to mind first. And that's what I ended up going with, just those quick little intuitive little snippet bits that just popped into my noggin. And when I went back and reviewed, I was like, yeah, these fit. I was really, for some reason, drawn heavily to tarot for this tag, not really oracle. Tarot kind of made its presence known and went to the forefront. That being said, I do have one other, like a miscellaneous. So there are 8 prompts, so I have 7 tarot and 1 miscellaneous. Links to all 4 of the original videos will be in the description box, as well a complete list of all the prompts should you care to reference and perhaps follow along. Also sneak those timestamps in there in case you just want to jump forward or backward for any reason. To the decks. Onward. It's the next day and I'm feeling a whole lot more relaxed than I did yesterday. It is Saturday, February 11th. I swear I have to check my Fitbit for the date every single time I want to say what the date is in any video that I do. Today I have Shucha Puer from Stephen Smith. This is a Portland-based distributor. I got this from a really lovely friend of mine who is also big into tea like I am. And I kind of forgot that I had it. It got tucked in the back of my little drawer, and it's really, it's a lovely puer. If you're not familiar with what puer is, let's just say it's a, this could have easily slotted into the acquired taste prompts. It's what they call post-fermented. So a lot of the time what they'll do is gather the leaves and put them into big piles, and usually these piles are somewhat damp, and what this does is allows microbes to start fermenting the leaves. And the end result, depending on whether you get a raw puer or a ripe puer, this is more of a ripe puer, so it's darker. It can taste a bit like it's almost gone off, but I mean that in the best possible way, which sounds strange. If you are familiar with puer, then you might know what I mean. It's very earthy. We'll leave it at that. And it's not everyone's cup of tea, but I like it. Yeah, that's really nice. Okay, for the decks. Like I said in my intro, there are 8 prompts, and I have 7 tarot and 1 miscellaneous kind of other selection. To break that down even further, I have 4 indie decks and 4 mass market decks. So let's get started with these Just so cute prompts. Going to consult my notes to make sure I get these right. Prompt number 1 is the Fling, a deck with which you had a short period of wild times. Saucy. Hands down for me, the first one that popped into my mind, because that's what I went with, is the Encore Tarot by Ciro Marchetti. This deck is fantastic. I really like it, with the exception kind of, again, I'm not big on cardstock, but glossy is edged in red. And this red does not bother my hands. Sometimes the shiny gilding can hurt hands, but this actually doesn't hurt my hands. This deck, this is one of his independent decks that he offers on his website. I'm not sure what the printing status is. I used the heck out of this deck when I first got it, like nonstop for quite a few weeks at a time. It lends itself particularly well, in my experience, to larger spreads. There's a lot of movement and directionality and just general overall communication between these cards, and it can lend itself well to really larger spreads. But after I had my like 3 to 4, maybe even 5 week kind of period with it, I put it away, and I think I've only taken it out a handful of times since then. So I would say this definitely qualifies as a Fling deck. We've had some good times, and we'll have more because I am keeping it. It's lovely. It speaks well for me, and for larger spreads, this is automatically one that I would consider first. So the Encore Tarot by Ciro Marchetti is my Fling. Prompt number 2 is Puppy Love, a deck with which you were infatuated but couldn't make a long-term commitment to. I had to dig through the recesses of my pass box for this one because I still have it, but it will be rehomed when I get to that point of rehoming decks. My Puppy Love deck is the Moonchild. This deck for me is still one of the most beautiful things that I've probably ever seen. It really is gorgeous. This is matte edging, by the way. This is also an independent deck. It is by Danielle Noel, or Noel, not quite sure. I think it's Noel. I don't know. But independent deck still available. This deck is really gorgeous. It absolutely is. The collage is well done. It's well put together. But for me personally, as a reader, it's flat. I know a lot of people say that this is a very emotionally charged deck for them. For me personally, I had the opposite reaction. I had no emotion, like nothing. And that can make for a good neutral reader, but this isn't my fit personally for a neutral reader. That would be more like a Pip deck, a Marseille style. This isn't neutral for me. It's just flat. it leaves me, but like that ace is really, really pretty. They're beautiful. They really are. But as a tarot, as art, you know, there are some of these that I would definitely hang on my wall. Like the aces, I think I would buy like prints of the aces and hang those on my wall. But as a tarot, it's just not, it's not a good reader for me. And so I loved it when I first saw it. I still love it as art, but as a tarot, it's flat for me. Doesn't work. So this is in my pass box, and it will be rehomed eventually. Side note, for those of you who have asked what I did with my decks that I put in my pass box from my deck inventory that I did at the end of last year, I still have them. There will be a video coming about my pass box, but only when I mentally and emotionally and logistically feel I am ready to deal with what that entails. So a video will be coming. It's just not happening yet. So stay tuned. my puppy love deck is the Moonchild. Prompt number 3 is the Friends with Benefits deck. A deck you care about, but sometimes get extremely passionate for. The first one I thought of for this actually kind of surprised me, but when I went back and did my review, it made sense. There are several for me that could have easily fit into this slot, but the one that came to mind first is the Japaritse. This is a mass market deck by Nino Japaritse. It is published by US Games. I have this one out of print for a while, for what I understand, and I acquired mine when it came back into print. So this is a later printing. As you start working with decks and you get to know kind of how they read for you, sometimes very specific niches for specific types of readings will emerge. And for me, this deck always speaks of lineage, not just lineage, but maternal lineage. It's been a deck I've used for working on healing the mother wound. I do have one of those. My mom passed away in 2015. Next month will be 8 years, and we did not have a harmonious relationship at all. And I'm really working on that acceptance and forgiveness piece as far as that's concerned. And this deck for me has really brought up some very strong energetic assessment as far as where I'm at with that. And I've been very grateful. I've been very grateful to have this one, but I cannot use it all the time. This is a once in maybe every 2 to 3 months, maybe even longer. I don't just whip this out. This is, I really feel I either need to be in a specific place, or I just intuitively feel that I need to use this deck, and whatever comes up in that regard. But yeah, but when I use it, I am fully immersed, fully immersed and all in. One of my favorite backs of any deck that I have, actually, or that I've seen. I have not edged mine. I don't know if I'm going to either. I might do it in gray or like a silver. I think that would be pretty, but yeah, maybe. Yeah, this is my Friends with Benefits. It definitely benefits me, but in very, very small and concentrated doses. Once again, that is the Japaritse Tarot by Nino Japaritse, published by US Games. For the Friends with Benefits prompt, I could have also easily put in the Lightseers or my Petitie Marseille, even my Ancient Italian, but I use that pretty regularly. That is kind of a passionate reader for me. That's why it was my espresso shot, just because it's punchy. But yeah, I could have easily put any of those in there, but the Japaritse was the first one that came to mind, so that's what I included. Prompt number 4 is the Love at First Sight, a deck you loved from the start. I went with the first one that came to mind, but I was like, wow, that's like the majority of my library, because I think that's why we kind of initially acquire these things, is because we see them and we're intrigued, or we love them when we see them. But the one that came to mind first is the Starseeker. After seeing this, I don't think I ever pre-ordered a deck so quickly as I did this one. I saw it in a Facebook group, pretty sure it was a Facebook group, and I was like, that's for me. And I went to Nikki Ferrata, the creator of the Van Mystic. I went to her Etsy shop and she was sold out, but she was doing pre-orders for the next printing, and I was like, take my money. What's interesting about this deck is that for me, it is pastel. It does have aspects of kind of that darker sort of energy. My Hierophant is upside down. Of kind of that darker coloring. And as a whole, I don't really do pastels. It's not really my color palette preference. I really don't have a color palette preference, but I always gravitate to the more earthy tones first, like New Palladini, or just any deck with some of those richer, more jeweled tones. Vintage Wisdom Oracle. I always gravitate toward those really quickly. And this one was not typical for me, but I just love it. It's so pretty. I do love how there is a lot of contrast. There is a lot of dark background, which is not something you often see, and I do appreciate that a lot. But, oh, here are the backs. The edging is really pretty. It's like this light, kind of grayish, smoky purple. It's really pretty. But yeah, I've loved this since I saw it, and I still love it. And so that is my love at first sight deck. The Starseeker Tarot by Nikki Ferrata. This is an independent deck. For that prompt, I could have easily put in my Nouveau Tarot de Marseille by Gonzalo Eneas. I could have put in my Tarocco Soprafino, the Il Meneghello. I could have put in the Golden Tarot by Liz Dean, and also I think the Elemental Power Tarot by Melinda Lee Holm. Any of those could have easily slotted in here, but Starseeker was first, so that's what you get. Prompt number 5 is the One Night Stand, a deck you tried out but moved on from almost immediately, but sometimes you still think about it. And this was an absolute no-brainer for me. I really don't have anything else that would fit this other than what I'm going to show you. My One Night Stand deck is the Rainbow Kipper, and it isn't the deck. It isn't the deck at all. It's the system. It's the system. I was interested in Kipper extensively in 2021 and part of 2022. That was before Lenormand kind of made its presence known a little bit more intensely in my life. But Kipper as a system intrigued me just because it is one of those cartomancy style systems, but it's very people oriented and it's very chatty. Not like Sibylla chatty, but kind of chatty in a different way. And I really wanted a Kipper deck. The ones that I saw, I wasn't really drawn to any of them. And then this one came on the scene and I was like, that's the one. That's the one. This is, you might have probably guessed, this is my miscellaneous, my other deck, and it is Mass Market. It is published by, who's the publisher on this? I can't remember the publisher. I'll try, if I remember, I will put it off to the side somewhere. But it's Tony Poole and Stephen Bright. Tony Poole has a YouTube channel, The Card Geek. Then Stephen Bright is a creator that's pretty well known. He did the Spirit Within tarot, and I think maybe another, but I honestly don't remember. Kipper is a system. So this is the only Kipper deck I have. And so it gets to represent for the entire system. But it's really, really great. It's a great Kipper deck. The silhouettes are right up my alley. I love that. But for me, the timing just wasn't right for Kipper and me. And so when after a few weeks of trying it out, I put it away and I haven't gotten it out since. And there will be a time and a place, I feel, for Kipper and me, but it is just not currently. But I am going to hang on to it. I'm not going to acquire any more Kipper decks at this time. This one is awesome, and when I'm ready for it, or when it's ready for me, it will get the job done. I think it will do it well. But just for now, it's just kind of chilling out in my cabinet, and it's perfectly fine there. It isn't going anywhere. I think about the system of Kipper a lot still as one that I would potentially like to explore further, but only when the timing is right. So have it, still think about it, not going anywhere. Rainbow Kipper, Tony Poole, Stephen Bright is my One Night Stand. Prompt number 6 is We Were on a Break. I think that might be a Friends reference. I honestly don't know because I've never watched that show. It's just never been one I cared for. So, but I think I remember somebody saying it might have been like a Ross and Rachel kind of thing. I don't know. But the We Were on a Break deck. A deck from which you are separated for any reason. The deck I'm separated from right now, for no other reason than a purely practical one, is the Bianco Nero Tarot by Marco Proietto. This is a US Games publication, and I love this deck. It's very RWS. This is a very young, masculine deck for me. And the only reason I am currently separated from it now is because I'm in the process of altering it. I am trimming the sides and the little top and bottom bit. So I'm leaving the numbers in the titles. And I am the world's slowest deck trimmer. So this is currently out of my working rotation simply because I'm working on trimming it and it's kind of all over the place at the moment. So I love this deck and I'm just not working with it simply because of the alteration. It's being altered. So that's that. I love this deck though, and it's not going anywhere. So that is my We Were on a Break deck, Bianco Nero. Prompt number 7 is Marriage Material, a deck that has proven its value to you. This is the one that I'm going to try really, really hard to not get overly emotional and sappy about. And when this was the first one I thought of, I'm like, okay. But it was, so that's what's going in. And it's the Good Tarot. This is mass market. It is Hay House. It is a Colette Baron Reed, Jenna Della Grottaglia creation. This is one of those tarots that when I hear readers talk about it's a tarot that should have been an oracle, a lot of the time this one comes up, and me personally, I wholeheartedly disagree with that. Back's here. And it's also glossy. It's also oracle sized, so it is larger than typical. This deck has proven its value to me simply because of the emotional processing and assimilation and integration that it has allowed me to do. At the end of 2021, my dad was extremely sick, as were a lot of people, and he was hospitalized twice. It was very scary for several days. And I was a bit of an emotional train wreck, and intuitively, my intuition was just said, go get the Good Tarot. And I thought that was funny because I hadn't touched this deck in ages, but I did, and I did a reading and I journaled pages and pages and pages and pages and pages. And I still think about this reading to this day, and I've used it for other sort of kind of emotionally charged situations, and every single time it just allows me to work through things. And it helps me with perspective, just because visually these associations are not always, they don't always intuitively make sense based on what a reader might know of Marseille or of the RWS. It's very out of the box. And what that does for me in an emotionally charged reading is it makes me look at perspective. It makes me look at things in a different way, and I value that highly, just because things can get so emotionally distorted so quickly, and then we can become very rigid in our processing of that. And so for me, perspective and varying perspectives are really important for that kind of work, and this deck allows that, and it's done it over and over and over again. And I appreciate it for that, and I'm pretty sure this is one I'll always have, if no other reason than for just getting me through those few months that were very scary. Trying not to cry. Not gonna cry. But yeah, that is my Marriage Material deck, the Good Tarot. Mass market, readily available. And last but not least, prompt number 8 is Happily Ever After. Your true love in a deck. This one makes me happy because I get to show this deck off yet again, because I just haven't done it enough in the last several videos that I've done. But so you're going to see it again. After this deck popped into my head and I reviewed, I wrote it down, and then I went back and reviewed, I was like, I just thought, okay, why did I pick that for my Happily Ever After? And I realized it's because it met 3 specific criteria that I value highly in a deck. 1, the minors are very pippish. I love Pippish decks. I just do. For me, they are more flexible in interpretation, and I work very numerologically. And so for me, I love me a good Pip deck. So Pip deck or Pippish. Number 2, strength is at 11 and justice is at 8. And number 3, there's an obvious elemental undertone to the deck. And I was like, okay, that makes sense. And that is the Way Home Tarot, because you just haven't seen it enough from me. This deck fits that criteria. Is it perfect? No. I mean, but you know, as far as those 3 kind of criteria, for me, it meets those very, very well. I could have easily put in the Golden Tarot by Liz Dean. It's a Pippish deck. Strength is at 11, justice is at 8, and there's heavy elemental. But if you've seen my working with the court cards video, I go into a little more detail about why I love this deck for the courts. They're very elemental, and I love what's going on in the numbered minors. It's like there's definitely something going on, but it's not so fixed that you can't, you know, expand your interpretation. And I love it. Oh, this is a Baccara Whitner and Autumn Whitehurst, and this is the 4th independent deck, and it is still available, pretty certain. But yeah, this is my true love in a deck overall, if I had to choose. I've featured this deck significantly on my channel in my Standout Decks 2022, my VR to Julie. I recreated a year ahead reading that I did with this deck. I recreated that reading in that video, and then I featured it pretty heavily since then. But yeah, I don't know. For me, it's like, look at that 4 of Wands and look at the fire. Look at that. And oh, there's a night card. Spoiler alert for a video to come. Because I will be using this deck for the Knights video, as well as the other 2 decks I used alongside this one. So yeah, my happily ever after deck is the Way Home Tarot. It's just so good. So that is it. Those are my choices for this really, really fun deck crush tag. Thank you to Don Michelle and Marlena and Lisa and Danny for creating this. It was so much fun. I've had a lot of fun watching the VRs and had a lot of fun participating and going through this process. Until my next video, take care and be well.